can't kill Nintendo. Nintendo will live on. Sega tried to kill Nintendo, but they failed as they were BTF. Oh. Sony tried to kill Nintendo, but they failed as the low times were a bunch of crap. Xbox tried to kill Nintendo. They failed as they had no Japan sales.
So I was thinking about the Xbox Showcase, and I kind of came to a realization. Didn't we have a similar situation last year in which people praised the Xbox Showcase and declared one of their games in particular to be a front runner for Game of the Year? Yeah, remember the Starfield Direct? Remember how this thing came out and everybody was freaking out about it and saying it made the game look so good, and I released statements saying it looked disappointing and just kind of forgot about Starfield until it came out and surprise, surprise, disappointed everyone, right? I've seen a little bit of half-hearted shilling for Starfield since then, but there's no denying it. The game is a complete failure, right? Bethesda took Skyrim, one of the most successful games of last generation, and within a decade just ruined their entire brand. They're done. There is going to be no recovery from this. There's going to be no oh, we'll put out a Skyrim 2. This is it, right? They are completely 100% done. They aren't capable of producing good games. Is my honest opinion on this. And Starfield, a game that's probably taken 10 years of production to make. Their big new IP, the big system seller for the Xbox, right? This thing that was supposed to be this huge deal. Yeah, it's crazy to think that this thing was somehow overshadowed by Hogwarts Legacy, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, I think even Baldur's Gate 3 is more relevant than it was, which is just sad to think about, considering how nobody plays Baldur's Gate 3. But Starfield is just an absolute failure, right? In every way, shape, and form. Nobody plays it, nobody talks about it. The game has no real appeal to it at all. And when this thing was first announced, when we got that Starfield Direct, going into hype season, 1 year ago today, everyone was saying the exact opposite, that this was going to be a game changer. This was going to be a big deal. It looks like the greatest thing ever. Bethesda never misses. And look where we're at now, right? Complete and abject failure. And that is what I saw in the Xbox Showcase this year. Very similar behavior from Xbox fanboys, hyping up Perfect Dark, even though they've never played a Perfect Dark game, hyping up Gears of War, even after the long line of terrible sequels over the past several years, hyping up Fable, which is guaranteed, which was never good, right? Again, I've seen those trailers over and over and over again, over the past couple of days, and yeah, I've concluded that none of that stuff is going to be any good. None of it. Not Doom the Dark Ages. Not none of it. Right? And yet you're gonna sit here and say oh, it was the best thing that was shown. It was the best showing we got this year. Yeah, you're saying that before we get the Nintendo Direct, right? Do you know how ridiculous that makes you look? And it's just going to be a repeat of every other year when Nintendo comes out, produces way more games than everyone else, and everybody just pretends it doesn't happen. Angry Joe won't even react to Nintendo Directs anymore because he's not really a gamer, right? And that's kind of the reality of the situation, I think, when it comes to the online gamer culture and the sphere and just the hype around these games. None of these people have any intention of playing any of these games on the Xbox Showcase, right? All they want to do is watch the trailer, get hyped, and like declare it like the best showing, right? They want Xbox and PlayStation to win because that's what's supposed to happen. And they just ignore like all the better games on Nintendo platforms, right? That has been like the reoccurring pattern for the past 20 years now, right? Like pay no attention to the better hardware on Nintendo consoles. Pay no attention to their superior IPs. Pay no attention to the fact that like they put out more games in a year than most developers will do in their entire existence, right? Like like ignore that the Switch is like well on its way to being the best-selling console of all time. Like the gaming YouTuber is obsolete. Is my honest opinion on this because they aren't manipulating public opinion. People don't like them, and all of their ideas are just bizarre and out of touch with reality, right? I'm reminded very strongly of Arlo. I'm watching him playing like Princess Peach Showtime. He's sitting there trying to convince us the game is bad, and then he just goes like, "Yeah, what we really need is a Princess Zelda game. Oh yeah, a Legend of Zelda game where you actually play as Zelda. Imagine being Arlo and being so stupid that you're gonna hype up a Legend of Zelda game while ignoring Princess Peach Showtime, right? Which took the Princess Peach character and did a lot of interesting, fun things with her. Like, no, let's ignore that and focus more on like the weird, like Marxist liberal dream, of just replacing Link with Zelda, which by the way, really needs to be addressed in the community as just being like peak woke shit for like the Legend of Zelda franchise because that is just absurd and needs to be like condemned for what it is. It is like completely out of touch with like what the IP is, what the audience wants. Like it is to me like the biggest red flag that like someone is a poser and not actually a Zelda fan, right? It's something that I take very seriously, and um, to see people like constantly beg for it, that period in E3 2016 where game journalists were like actively like pressuring Miyamoto, Onoma, those guys, like uh, Fujibayashi even, I think, like in regards to is Link female in Breath of the Wild, and like all of them like got really annoyed. Like imagine unveiling Breath of the Wild and having to deal with these idiot journos like trying to push like weird politics on you, right? That was E3 2016 for those guys, right? Like, and um, it's it's a weird situation we're in now, where like people like Arlo are still actively trying to push for it, even though these ideas are clearly unpopular, and nobody really wants to see it, right? But yeah, uh, again, like the way it feels now though is that like it extends the corruption in gaming culture like extends far beyond like platform preference or like weird political stuff. Like it's straight up just worshiping brands over actual games, right? Like it's crazy if you go to Angry Joe's channel how like he's always constantly talking about Warhammer 40K, even though it gets him no views. Meanwhile, like the Nintendo stuff just gets completely ignored, right? Like again, nobody cares about Warhammer 40K. Like it's a dying IP at this point. So Angry Joe is going to be in this weird position where like all the stuff he likes, Marvel, comic book movies, Star Wars, Star Trek, you know, Warhammer, like all of it's going to like fall flat on its face, and he's not going to have a channel because he did not diversify enough by talking about the things that are actually popular and people actually want to see videos on, right? Like that's the issue we're seeing right now is that like people are desperately trying to act as if Nintendo is like on the decline or making like critical mistakes like business wise especially, and that doesn't seem to be the case. I saw like a Raging Golden Eagle video today where he's trying to convince us like, oh, Nintendo makes good games but they make really bad business decisions. Do they? Like you can look at like Nintendo's metrics, how they have zero debt and how much money they bring in. Like they are the most well-run business in the industry. Like bad business decisions, what exactly are you talking about, right? Like that is like the reality I see whenever I see people like suggest that Nintendo like mistreats their customers or something. Like how exactly is that a thing that exists? Like Like it's just them like making stuff up, pretending that Nintendo is evil to like push their own weird political agenda. Like it's not even like really a woke culture thing because I've noticed this behavior with anti-woke too. Like, both Grums and like hardcore leftist grifters like Arlo, like they are going to attack Nintendo when the situation calls for it. Because these people are not gamers. They don't care about video games. All they can care about is like what they can do to grift off of it and make more money and get more attention and like get more clout in their sphere, right? That's all this is really, is that like this isn't a community to talk about video games. It's a community to like kind of just incessantly just attack other people online for like perceived issues that they have with those video games, right? Like, oh, how dare those liberals say this, or how dare anti-woke say this? Like, shut the fuck up and actually talk about the games is my honest opinion at this point. And I feel that that's simply never going to happen with Xbox, PlayStation, or PC because when you really get down to the bottom of it, like those brands have absolutely nothing to play.